Hey Max, first thing first, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us on the Growth Mindset podcast. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Max, I want to dive directly into our conversation before we get into the introductions, right? And I have my list of questions ready for you so that we could go ahead and cover those. I want to basically start off with something that is very, very important and crucial, right? And it is to do with the tech side of things. As we began our conversation, we spoke briefly about it, right? Like how tech kind of influences people's behavior today. We are hooked on our digital applications. And you helped build an app called as Ocho, right, in the past, and this was pre-Instagram era, so we could call you like a pioneer who already thought about this way back, right? So, and you walk through a feature you specifically created to hook people on that app, right? So how was your thinking around it? What did you think around that respective feature, that application? How does that work, and can you give us an idea as to what does this tech typically all do? Like even today it is being used, so how are
Absolutely.
this getting hooked?
So yeah, when I was like just sort of first finding my way in the work world, they said, "Hey, you're young, go figure out social media." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll work in social media." And I met someone who was starting a social media app, and I thought, "Okay, I like the startup world and the energy of that. Let me see if I can sort of help and be a part of this." And basically investors would tell us that if we could hold your attention for 2 minutes or longer, then we had a valuable company. So that's what we were
Hmm.
working on. We were basically doing whatever we could that would work to grab and hook users. And so that was, how many notifications can we send you every day before you turn them off? If we autoplay the next video, we get 10% more attention than rather than just like
Hmm.
making people click to the next video. So let's do that. And then just really thinking about what names and people should show up first and like the liked this or saw this or, or whose videos show up first or second or third in the feed. All of those thoughts are very carefully architected to grab and hold as much attention as possible. And honestly, we weren't even that good at what we were doing. Like we had tens of thousands of users, not millions, but it's the same game that all the social media companies are playing today.
Yeah, yeah. And do you want to get into probably some insights that you got into the human psychology around, like one of the methods you mentioned is keep auto playing things so that you get more retention of people's attention, right? Things of that people don't necessarily realize, but are getting hooked to these applications, Instagram, Facebook, and so on.
I think one of the most helpful frameworks to think about throughout all of the different apps and digital products is the slot machine or variable rewards. So one of the most addictive mechanisms for the brain is this variable reward schedule, which basically means
Mhm.
that you pull a lever or you push a button, and sometimes you win, the lights flash, it feels good, sometimes you don't, but you can't predict when you're going to get that feel good thing.
Hmm.
And in animal studies, they find monkeys, if they are pulling a lever or pushing a button, and sometimes they get the food and sometimes they don't, they'll just push that button for hours and hours and hours at a time. If they can predict when they're going to get the exciting feel good thing, they push it, they eat their food, they go on their way. But on these variable reward
Hmm.
schedules, they can't, they just like sit there pushing for hours and hours. And so much of our digital devices are designed like these slot machines. Every time we hit a little red icon, we're playing the slot machine of, what did I get this time? Did I get something
Yeah.
exciting? Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And then more than just the notifications or did the one person I really wanted to see my story, did they see my story? Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. More than any of that, it's the feed itself. So most of the time we're spending on these apps, we're hunched over a rectangle, scrolling,
Yes.
going bored, bored, bored. That was funny. Bored, 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 bored. Whoa, check that out. So the feed itself is a slot machine. And I think people don't recognize that in general, we are just sitting there scrolling on these slot machines, getting that emotional hit or that entertainment or that excitement on these unpredictable schedules.
Interesting. That's really interesting. I never looked at it that way. I've read a lot of books on getting hooked, how these multinational companies, obviously, and it's not necessarily evil per se, but yes, they want the people's retention, right? That's where they make revenue. That's where the money is for them. So obviously they want people to be retained. But what do you think are some practical things that normal average human beings like you and I can do, and others listeners who are listening to us can do so that they don't become a victim of this and probably have power back?
One of the most helpful things that I have found is an app called OneSec. There are a couple of
Okay.
different competitors with it too, but the concept of this app, which whenever you set it up on whatever apps you want, and then instead of going in, it tells you to take a deep breath before the app opens. And then it asks you how many times you've tried to open. It tells you how many times you've tried to open the app in the last 24 hours, and then makes you write in your intention before you go in. And so just like adding a little bit of mindfulness or intention, I found that. but just things we can do on our own. I think like one thing that I really like is thinking of technology as a trade. So anytime we reach for our device, just trying to mentally say, do I want to make this trade right now?
Mm,
Do I want to trade presence for looking at this? Sometimes it's, especially with AI, sometimes I think, oh, I'm just going to look up the answer. But just pausing, do I want to trade like the process of figuring it out together and being
mm,
in the unknown with you, or like what we might learn from that, or laughter, or memories we might share in that process? But just really trying to think, what is a trade? What's the trade that we're making here? And do I want to make that trade right now? I think is one habit that can be quite helpful. Um, and yeah, I guess I'll leave it at there for now.
okay. Yeah, because I've also incorporate this is something that I've picked up from multiple conversations that I've had and also books that I've read and my own personal experience, right? If someone kind of becoming addicted to this, I think one of the best things that has helped me is kind of disable the notifications for all of these apps, right? So that I don't have that anyone else trying to knock at my door because someone knocks at my door, then I have to open the door. But imagine no one knocks at your door, there are no notifications, then I don't end up getting into that app, and once you get into an application and you keep scrolling, time just flies,
Totally.
right? We don't even realize that.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like turning it off altogether. Some people like turning off all of them that aren't from a human being actually trying to reach you. So that's happy holidays from this app. You haven't played this game in a while. This person liked your photo. This person's typing. Turn off all that so it can only be a
Yeah,
message or a call. But yeah,
exactly.
customizing your notification settings definitely helps and goes a long way.
Yeah. And now before we dive further into our conversations, Max, for people, I know a lot of people in the West already know you, right? But for my Indian audience that might not have interacted with you or might not have come across, would you like to give a brief insight as to who Max is and what Max does?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think I'm a poet and storyteller. I love communicating. I love delivering an idea. And I've been doing that now for like on stages for a little over a decade. And I sort of split my time between writing and performing poetry and sort of poetry shows and turning those into videos and films that have been spread far and wide on the internet as well. And doing this work, some of what we've talked about, which is helping young people, especially teenagers and their parents and educators, deal with the chaos that social media has unleashed on their lives. And so I go around from school to school, like on a community by community level, just trying to provide some insights and really help kids think for themselves. Is this actually what you want to be doing? Like, are you enjoying this
Mm,
time that you're spending on this app? Are you liking the relationships that you're having through this? And trying to add some mindfulness or perspective for kids and then help educate parents and schools on the subjects. Honestly, I'm pushing in a big way for schools to be like places that phones are not, but there's no phones for the school day, and helping
mm,
parents delay giving their kids smartphones and social media, as I think more childhood before this stuff takes over is really, really valuable for developmental reasons. But yeah, so my time is sort of split between writing and performing poetry on a wide variety of subjects, this stuff included, and doing this work with kids in schools.
wow, I mean, that's a very noble cause. And I think kind of rewiring the kids' brain at an early age is very important because that's where their belief system, the way they think, their mindset, everything is evolved at that young age, right? We're building patterns of those respective kids. And obviously, if we allow social media, now that'll dictate their behavior, which means obviously it's no longer the kids thinking for themselves, it's probably whatever they are looking at on that social media platforms that might drive their behavior. So help me understand, and this is a very important topic, I think, that you can probably share your thoughts on, and you can be as elaborative as you want, right? If someone who's a parent listening to our podcast, what are some things that they need to do to ensure their kids don't get addicted to phones or social media for that
So
matter?
if they're young enough, then the best thing you can do is just like delay the first introduction. A lot of parents give their kids like a smartphone as soon as they want to be able to communicate with them from afar, but really thinking about like what's the actual task that I want my kid to be able to do right now. They're dumb phones, phones, actual phones that you can use to text and call and do all of those things that are far more age appropriate for kids who are probably like 10 to 14. I think 10 is young
Okay.
even for that. We need to stop giving the really young kids supercomputers and infinite access to everything machines, porn machines,
Mm,
self comparison machines, just as soon as we want to communicate with them from afar. I think also leading by example for parents is the big deal. Kids learn about these habits and
yeah.
behaviors from us. It can be really nice is narration when we are. So let's say we're on our devices in front of kids, but just adding the context of like, hey, I'm going to check this. I'm going to see if this is your mom, your dad, the hospital. Then I'm going to put it down. Or I know I'm on my devices a lot. Like I'm working. This is how we put food on the table. I'm not just scrolling or playing a game.
Got
I'm
it.
an adult. I'm scrolling. I'm playing a game. I want to do that for the next 30 minutes. Maybe you can help me stop after 30 minutes. Just adding the context for kids to help like try to model that intentionality. I think that's some of the big steps. And then, yeah, like a lot of conversations. There's a big difference between somebody isolated scrolling alone in their room versus like something on a joint screen or on a TV in a living room, or like if they have to explain and narrate to you what they're doing on the device. Kids, when they say this stuff out loud, are often like, oh yeah, like what is this?
Yeah.
What I actually want to take this in. So those are some steps and actions that can be helpful for parents.
Interesting. And again, one of the things that I think is important is the way you said kids, when you ask them to narrate to themselves or to their parents as to what they were doing on the phones, obviously, then they might get aware, like awareness around what they were trying to do, which could prevent the kids from doing that. Because the question that I asked was from the parents' perspective, right? But from teenagers' perspective, who are probably have the phones now and they are probably getting unconsciously or subconsciously hooked onto the mobile application, especially social media for that matter, like Instagram, TikTok, and so on and so forth. What do you think they need to do first? Like, how do they recenter themselves, get life together, ensure that they don't fall a victim of this?
I think so. It's so deep and it's so integrated to
Yeah.
so much of their lives. It's very hard to even notice or wake up from this stuff. I have often conversations with teenagers where one thing I push them to do is try to just like move the main app they're using to message each other off of Snapchat, just to like regular messaging apps like
Mm.
WhatsApp or like in your sort of region or place, but like things actually about communicating and not so much social media. Sometimes that thought is even hard for them. They're like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Wow.
I go there to message. It's like, well, right. So when you think of, I want to message someone, I'm trying to get you to move from, I need to go to their Snap to
Mm.
like, I just need to go to open a regular messaging app.
Yes.
Like trying not to let social media be the main messaging place is a big one. I
Got
ask
it.
teens to think about what's the one app that you know you either spend way too much time on or it's really bad for your mental health in terms of what you're watching. You're thinking about it right now. There's one app, everybody can think about this. Like, what is that one app for you and why? I ask them to think about that for a moment. They think about it, they talk about it for a moment. And then I'm like, who's down to try deleting that for 1 week and like seeing how it feels? And so just like seeing if we can if we can start to build like just see what it's like, because some of them don't know
Yeah.
what it's like to not have that on their device. And the key here, and this is where parents can be helpful, and honestly, like friends can be helpful because this is hard. We're in a new world where like bored, really different thing. But like, what are we doing instead? Like in that moment where we feel called to reach for it, what do we want to do? Like we might not know. That's hard. It's hard to even figure out sometimes. Like, what is it that we actually want to dedicate our time and energy to? But like trying out different things, trying out things with friends, like
Yes.
figuring out what the other habits, the replacement habit is going to be is a big deal. And that for kids, I think is really challenging, especially because the grit and resilience of having it just kind of not feel good and being bored and being uncomfortable and like trying stuff and having it not be fun. Like it might take 10 tries to get the thing that you really want to find. Like, and actually being able to go through that process is, I think, important and helpful.
Wow, I mean, you covered so many important pointers, and I know if we talk about it, this can get into a whole different conversation, right, altogether, because this is very deep. Trying to change teenagers or even kids' behavior is something that obviously is not simple. And the way all of these social media apps are designed today, they're designed in such a way that, as you said, if you're going to, let's say, Instagram to probably text or Snapchat, that's not necessarily a messaging application, right? The, the moment you go there, you might end up scrolling reels. You might go ahead and doing
Totally.
liking things. Yeah, you just waste your time then.
And then for kids, that's like this, it's mostly mindless content with occasionally something really wonderful. So
Yeah.
parents get trapped. It's like, my kids saw this amazing thing. Yes, there are amazing things. It's the whole internet. Of course, there's great stuff out there. Those are the reward in the slot machine that keep you
Yes.
scrolling. But it's a lot of like, if social media were a movie, it would be rated NC-17. Like, that's the type of
Mm,
content that is being given to kids at very young ages. And like, probably more, if we're being honest, on social media, the type of stuff
yes.
is. And so we're walking into an NC-17 movie every time we want to message our friends, and a movie that is like socially coordinated to keep you there and creates
Yes.
all of this comparison and insecurity and body image challenges off. So it's just, it's a really complicated world that kids are growing up in today. And just like, also, I want parents to be invited to like trust themselves, because most parents are not like, I want to give my kids smartphone,
Yeah.
social media. Yep, I want to do that. They're like, I guess this is the world. Like, okay,
Mm,
here, I don't want you to be left behind. But no, like people are doing something crazy. Like we can absolutely trust our own instincts so that they're not ready for this, and we can trust ourselves as humans and as parents in that way.
True, and I think the addition of AI then, Max, I think would add another layer of complication, right? To because now you have no way to also kind of probably distinguish between what is real versus what is not. First of all, it was so chaotic, and now with the invention of AI. So where do you think, in based on your experience so far and what you're gathering intel from the school, colleges, and even talking with people on stage, are you finding any patterns that with the invention of AI and incorporating that into the social media platforms, are there foreseeable challenges that you see would come up?
I mean, so the just being able to discern what is a real image and not, or what's a real video or not, is certainly its own challenge. And I would argue that we've been for a while in a place where people are very prone to wanting to believe what they want to believe, and then why their belief is so. And so, like, this will pour gas even more so on that fire of people will be able to say, like, I saw this world leader punch that guy in the face. Like, I saw it. You can't tell me it didn't happen. Um,
True.
and and it's so like that's going to be its own challenge for sure. But I was thinking about this the other day, and I think what social media did was it really changed on a global scale what happens in a moment of boredom, loneliness, or anxiety. And it filled that space in a way that I don't think many people would say is a good idea of a way to fill that space. But like that's the drug that sort of filled into that space. And I think what we're going to see with AI as well is now the moment of asking for help, or I need to understand this, or I don't know what's going on. I think that is going to be, that hole is now going to be filled where people turn to the device instead of turning to each
Yeah.
other or turning to another place. And we're seeing that with kids in terms of like them having conversations with AI bots instead of each other. And that has its own set of challenges. And I would argue that like the natural friction, both that happened in boredom and loneliness and anxiety, have to deal with this, have to feel the feelings, have to like move through it ourselves. That was valuable. And losing that has a high cost. And
Yes.
similarly, like maybe, you know, you as my friend, like you don't have the answer, but like my having to come to you and figure it out and you're learning how to support and being with like
Mm.
that friction is valuable. And so I think we're going to see relationally and social skills development wise an even further hit. And the more that we can, I think, double down on interpersonal relationships, on the humanness,
Yeah.
and actually being willing to tolerate the discomfort of some of those things, I think that's going to be even more important in the next wave.
Wow, I mean, I've never thought about this from these two perspectives, and that's why this is amazing, right? Like you open two different perspectives to me, and I think when I think about this now, saying your interpersonal skills are going to be impacted, and instead of talking to people, obviously you're going back to your phones. And one of the interesting things about these AI bots also is that they are not 100% accurate today, right? I've noticed they are more pleasing to your point if you have a question to ask, and the AI recognizes you have certain biases towards those things, then you would notice it would kind of give you information that is more biased towards your own belief system so that it can appeal to you. Now, how do you discern? Because is that a fact or is that just your own superficial way of thinking?
Right. Like that's where I think having our own, you know, in many ways, I think trusting ourselves is the most important thing we can do, but also having the humility to be like, okay, like, yeah, I don't know necessarily. And this is where I'm really grateful for my own set of critical thinking skills and like the way I've been raised around information and kind of and logic in understanding what is and isn't likely to be really happening, and then asking discerning questions of like, really? Is that actually what's going on? But how people navigate that world of checking our own bias. Okay,
Mm,
I think I really want to like double check on this and double check maybe with a different AI, maybe with people, like, and
yeah.
not just use everything as the confirmation is going to be really important. And I don't know exactly how to instruct people to do that. I like to operate from the assumptions that for the most part, there's some exceptions. For the most part, people are good and doing their best
Yes.
and like not actively
True.
trying to like harm or
Yeah.
manipulate each other. It's not true 100% of the time, but it's true most of the time. And that like most wild, outrageous, ridiculous things and claims are probably not true. So like let's
Mm,
really double down and check that they are true. Like is that actually happening? And trying to like give people benefit of the doubt and to operate through that lens, I have found helpful to like check things if I'm seeing extreme things on the internet. And I'm grateful that the AI exists, that like if people are so inclined, I do trust the AI more than most like the Googling process of.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would
True.
rather people see an outrageous claim on the internet, put it into AI, and be like, "This doesn't be accurate," and have that conversation. But yeah, I mean, I'm nervous about it all for sure. I forgot your initial question. I went on a little bit of a ramble there.
No, I think you're on the right track. Why? Because when we think about this, right, I think it also is important based on what kind of questions you are asking the AI. Because if you're asking the AI question based on your own bias opinions, then obviously you're going to just be given an answer that yes, it makes sense. But I think to your point, what definitely makes sense is finding some information which is just extreme or just something is fishy there. You probably put that and say, you know what, can you run facts and see or and give me even references as to if this thing really actually happened, right? And I think this is the challenge everyone is trying to solve, even at all of these big corporates out there right now.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's dangerous, I think, when we put all of the trust in it. Like,
Mhm.
I want us to put our trust in life and humanity and ourselves and each other over it, and,
Yes.
like, I want to use it, I don't want it to use us,
Mm.
but it's, like, yeah, because even to recognize, all right, here are some of the biases it seems to be working with. Right now, AI is very complimentary and butt kissing. Like, that seems to be a way that it probably, by the time this
Yeah.
podcast is released, that might not be true. Like, they change it all the time. And so, but being able to recognize, like, okay, you're being very affirming. Like, can we see a different perspective? Or you're
Mm.
being very argumentative. Like, if you were agreeing with me, what would that look like? Like, I don't know if it changes the other way. Like, I don't know how it's going to be or
Yeah.
going to unfold. But yeah, like, I'm nervous about the level of trust we put in it. It's mostly like I just wish people were thinking differently and operating differently is the reality for me, because it really does just pour gas on all the things that we're already doing. And I'm reading articles about people, like, losing friends to these AI bots because
Wow.
they're asking questions that are making them believe that they are spiritual super leaders and they have all of the answer, because they were already prone to believe some of that, and it pours gas on the tendencies. But it's honestly, yeah, deeply in me, I just wish we were better at relating to each other and caring for each other and loving each other. Like, that's what I really
True.
want for the world.
True. And this kind of, refreshes my memory, or I kind of recall a book that I'd read some time back. It was called as Misbelief. That basically
Hmm.
was talking about how people sometimes get into that loop where they start believing what do you call that? Stories that are not true, like myths. I'm missing that word. Not controversial. It's something like that.
Conspiracy theorists.
Conspiracy theories, yes, like how people get into that loop of first they were not believing in conspiracy theories, but then after down the lane through stress and other external factors, how people actually end up becoming a conspiracy theorist or just start believing in random things altogether. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I feel this in myself for sure. I'm not immune from this, but I think for a lot of people, it's easier somehow to believe that there's like a secret group controlling
Yes.
everything than it is to be in the unknown of, like, there's just a lot happening and we don't know what's going
True.
on here. Like, it's easier for people to point to a bad guy. And I think it's not that. It's not like I don't think it's a bad guy or a cabal that is controlling all of the things. Yes, some people have more power than others. I'm not
Yes.
saying otherwise, but, like, it's mostly, I think, incompetence over malice, and it's mostly people just, yeah, like, live in an unknown, mysterious world. But that's hard.
Yeah. Have you read that book, by the way, Misbelief, by any chance,
I
Max, or
haven't,
no?
but it sounds interesting.
I think you might like it because the person also is a well-known behavioralist scientist, right? Dan Ariely.
Cool.
I think he had written the book Predictably Irrational. So he has given some insights as to why people end up believing in things of this sort and how misinformation is gonna be more and more prevalent in coming years. I think it's an interesting read, so you might like it since you're in this field, right?
Yeah, thank you.
And now going back to one of your primary things, right? Now, obviously, you were in tech and now you're already a total opposite of what you are currently doing, right? So, what kind of drove that decision saying, you know what, I'm not going to be doing this. I'm going to be now educating people on this. Was there any specific story, an incident that triggered this decision?
It would be nice for the story if there was some moment that it was a wake up and a shift, but that's not really the reality. I have found in looking at my life and of others too, like, the dots make sense when you look backwards, but as you're going through it, it's not like a clear this, then that, then this, then that. And yeah, it was over time and conversations with people, especially Tristan Harris, who founded, like, the Center for Humane Technology, who's featured a lot in The Social Dilemma. the way he was talking about this stuff, about how attention was being steered for 2 billion people, I was like, yeah,
Yes.
wow, we're not really thinking about this in deep ways. And I just wanted to help him however I could. So I helped him start that organization. We were getting all these emails from parents and teachers saying, what do we do? And I was like, and Tristan is brilliant, but was much more focused on just like other things and didn't not touching. I was like, I'm just going to take the education side of things and started speaking
Mhm.
at schools, and here we are. And so that's what led me in that direction. And then yeah, and the other side of my work, like one of the first ways that I helped that movement was I like wrote a poem and turned it into a video that helped sort of spread awareness for it. And that side of things has always just been very close to my heart of how can I use this sort of rhyme and rhythm mechanism to help messages sort of deeply land and spread and express myself and my art. And that has been deeply relevant and important to my soul.
And I think this is the interesting part where I want to learn more about you and this storytelling world that you've gotten into, writing poems, getting on stage. And this is like a whole way of communicating or trying to display a message, right? Or share a message. So I'd like to understand, okay, for people that are probably more interested in storytelling and things of this, all right? Because end of the day, I believe all of us are storytellers. We all live our lives. So how do you think people can become storytellers, and what have been your revelations when you got into this specific venture and field?
Yeah, this one, like, it's been very related to my relationship with like God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, because it really felt like it happened to me. Like I heard a poet perform, my arms were tingling and it wouldn't stop tingling. And I started writing and like a poem came out of me. And then I did that, like I saw him the next day. I was like, hey, I wrote a thing. Do you want to hear it? And I shared it with him. And he was like, you should consider pursuing this. And at that time, that sort of feedback was very helpful for me. And
Nice.
I kept writing and I got hit with a poem while I was waiting for a train. I turned that into a film that spread around, and like I really feel like it's listening more than it is like trying to create. And it's like listening and telling the truth. It's like telling your own truth of what is really true for you. And often it's fear that's in the way of us expressing what is really true for us, afraid of how people will receive us, afraid of what it means to say that for ourselves or for others. But the truth is interesting and the truth is powerful. And if we're telling the truth, I think that is an interesting story. And then there's, in terms of shaping it and how it comes out for you, I think everybody's different. Like my fiance is much better at like structuring writing and has like a PhD in that side of things. I'm like kind of a idiot writer in like a lot of the ways, writing Dr. Seuss kind of type rhymes. That's how it comes out of me. But I think it's beautiful however it comes out. I don't think it
Mm,
needs so much structure or we have to be so finicky about how exactly we structure the story. It's like telling the truth is powerful and interesting.
very interesting. Now, I want to understand what was that first poem that you wrote about? That obviously, because first things are always interesting. So, what was that about? Do you recall?
Like the very first one that came out,
Yeah, the very first one. Yes.
it was about poetry. Like it was like why it
Okay.
was me trying to figure out like why is this thing like so sticking with me? What's going on here? And I wrote like a poem about that. Of like it was what I wrote down was I sit and ponder the beauty of slam poetry, or under the reason it so flows in me. And I was like, oh, that rhymes. I can do this. Like
Wow.
let me just try to try to keep going. And it was an exploration in myself. And a lot of my favorite writing, I think, is I've got the eureka. I'm in some sort of exploration of
Mm,
what's happening here, what's happening in me, and then just voicing the different sides of it and the ways that it's coming through me. I have found that to be meaningful. And that was that first poem.
interesting. Because I came to your profile and I discovered your content through one of your poems, and I told you at the beginning before we started, right? Like it was with those two babies having conversations with each other around, is there a life after you go out, right? And the says, yeah, it might be possible. It seems like there will be a better world. And it was so beautiful, right? Because I'm a man, I also have belief system. I am a man of faith as well. So it kind of makes sense. You're able to kind of connect the dots saying there is life after death in some capacity, right? That's what you were kind of like, that's the message I got. It was very
Yeah.
beautiful, right?
That's a very old story that has many versions, and I adapted one of the versions of it for an opener for my show, which I'll share with you. It's a beautiful one, which is in a mother's womb where two babies, and one turns to the other and says, do you believe in life after delivery? And of course, the other one quickly retorts, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here getting ready for what will be. What? Seriously? That's outrageously silly. There's no life after delivery. What kind of life could be after delivery? I don't know, said the second, but there'll be more light than here. Maybe we'll run and skip and dance and jump and play and laugh and breathe and love. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses that we don't understand now. Well, that's awfully impossible, the other one scoffed. Oh, we'll walk with our legs and with magic stay up and we'll eat with our mouths? Come on, that's dumb. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition, and you see this cord? It's far too short. There's no life out there, of course. But maybe it's just different than it is here, the other implored. Maybe we won't need that physical cord anymore. Nonsense, said the first. And furthermore, if there were life after delivery, I'm sure that someone would have come back to report. Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery, there's nothing. It's darkness and silence. It's oblivion infinite. You better know that now so you can deal with it. I don't know, the second baby uttered, but certainly we'll meet Mother, and she'll take care of us. Mother, replies the other. You actually believe in Mother? If Mother exists, where is she now? And she's all around us, said the second, eyes big. We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist. I don't see her, the first insisted. Sure seems like she just doesn't exist. Sometimes, replied the second. When you're in silence, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above. You can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above. And so, yeah, it's funny because in sharing that online, I got so many messages of being like, it was like, you took this from this old Jewish rabbi. You took this from Rumi. You took this from what, like, it was just like everyone different. It's
Yep.
an old story that has many different versions. The one I heard first was from Wayne Dyer, which was from it was in a book called Your Spiritual Self. It was shared with me by my friend Alice Frank. And then I was just going to use exactly his version, but then I adapted it with a little bit more rhyme and rhythm into my own for the opener for my show, which I'm incredibly proud of, trying to figure out how and where to do next. I did a run in New York City, and I'm trying to figure out the next life for it, but it's about those concepts and life after delivery and love, and told through the relationship with my own mother, who was like, there's nothing, we just rot in the ground forever, is her attitude. And so it's a back and forth there. But yeah, I love that story so much, and I love sharing it with everyone, but then especially people. I love sharing it with people who have like lost loved ones. I love sharing, like, someone shared with me that they shared it with their hospice group, and that's like a beautiful way as people are preparing for delivery. But yeah, I think it's so beautiful.
I think it is one of the best poems I've heard, to be very honest, so far. So far, I'm 32 years old, but so far this is the best. And when I heard it, I was like, wow, right? And when you hear it in person, this is even more powerful. So I'm glad I'm glad you did that, and I'm glad folks that have not heard your poem in India, at least when they hear it, they know the importance of this, because this directly connects with the life after death. And I just connected me, like it had a so profound impact that I was like, man, this is just amazing. And then I've seen there are so many poems like that that you're writing and continuously doing, right? You're doing shows on that. When was your last event in New York?
It was in March, actually. It's
Okay.
very, I mean, figuring out how to do theater and financially how to make it all work is really
Yeah,
challenging. But I'm trying to figure out how to give this more
nice.
life. Maybe it comes to India. See how to
Please,
see what we can make
please let
happen.
me know. Absolutely. And I'm gonna ensure that, all my people that I know also kind of share that message, so that people can hear more of that. Because end of the day, we need more love, more empathy, compassion spread across. Because end of the day, we are social animals, right? We need all of these to survive and thrive. Yeah, all of this is good. Technology, making
Amen.
money, become
Oh,
successful.
Ashe. Absolutely to all of that.
Exactly. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to basically talk about was storytelling, right? Now, in the storytelling pattern that you told me, obviously, not everyone becomes a great storyteller right off the bat. And there had to be a process where you were able to refine yourself to be able to now give this poetry an image, right? The way you are able to communicate. So, what can people do to be actually be able to become better storytellers? How can I communicate better? How can people who want to improve their communication skills or talk better? How can they do that?
I think one exercise, like, I will first, before I answer that, double down on, because I host like these online actually writing groups every month or so. And what
Mm,
remains to be true over and over again is the main thing in the way of people telling their stories is some sort of fear of how they're going to be perceived. Like, I don't think the main challenge is I don't know how to craft it and tell my story. I don't think that's the main challenge. I think the main
mm,
challenge is I'm afraid to express myself. But in terms of, like, if you really are, there are two sides of this to me. If you're really trying to tell it for an audience, then there's, like, I think the process of really, really being able to have the empathy to put on the audience's shoes and be like, all right, if I were listening to this, and I knew nothing about it whatsoever, like, would I get it? Would I make sense? Do I have enough of like the details to really know what the heck this person's talking about? Like, what is this part interesting or is this not that interesting? But really putting on the audience's shoes and really putting yourself in that position, like really imagining, okay,
Mm.
I know nothing about this. I know that that part was so important to me, but it's not important to this random audience person. Like, so
Yes.
how do I help it land? It's like really that empathy lever. And then the other piece of it is like ignoring that altogether, is being like, I don't care how this is going to land at all. This is what I need to say. This is what I need to express. This is how I need to express it. And sometimes that's the medicine. And those types of stories, I would say, usually don't land with as many people. And then
Yeah.
sometimes the ones they do land with, like, it's just like, I just got that. That was for me. That was amazing. And sometimes, like, I heard someone say once that art only needs to help one person and that person can be you. And
Mm.
so like really it's sometimes just for you. Expressing it is the point. And this is where also where social media is so tricky because it's so easy to be like, I created something, I
Yeah.
shared it. Oh, like they didn't like that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe that wasn't good. Like what was not the point. It's removed from the point. And so also being careful of like there are many ways of sharing things. You can have a conversation with someone one on one. You can pull out your phone and show it to them directly. You can gather friends in a room and share something that way. We don't need to share everything on social media. And I would say it rarely feels great to share something on social media. It's often
Yeah.
just like, how does this do? Like I had did this go, it didn't do as well as that other thing. Like I had it's like sometimes you get messages that are really nice is my experience, but like the overall net feeling of sharing on social media, I have not found to be positive. I'm grateful for some of the impact that that's had, the people it's allowed me to reach, but it rarely
Yeah.
feels good for me. I'm curious if you feel similarly to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had mixed reactions. Like, I'm a very private person, Max, right? I'm not someone who likes to, like, my personal life, I keep it very personal. I'm never putting my personal stuff out on social media and all of that. Yeah, if I have to say something, if it's important, I know that will that will add value. That's the only things that I'm sharing. Otherwise, I'm not sharing a lot of things on social media. And also, I've realized that for me, success and my personal goal is to do what I think is right, and I know people that are going to listen will find value, and that's the right thing to do. And that's a positive and a loving message, right? I don't care about whether it goes viral. Yeah, if it goes viral, good, because more people will be reached. But that's not the rat race of likes, followers. I try to tend to away from it very mindfully, because I know a lot of content competing for likes and followers, there is no coming back. Then people are just trying to create content for it to go viral, not necessarily for it to add value to people's lives. And those are two very separate things.
And so I
Yeah.
would love to double click on that. Like how are you able to accomplish that and have that relationship with it? Like what steps have you taken to be able to keep yourself separate from that pull?
You said poem?
Or from the pull of
Oh, okay.
the
The
I
pull
mean, I
of
feel like
of
it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got it. So what I typically do is I have a rule that whenever I'm traveling, I'm going out, anything that is to do with me and my personal life, whatever I'm eating, hanging out with friends, that's something that I don't like to put on social media. That's me between me and my friends, not for someone to peek into my personal life. And my podcast page that I have is more to do with all my podcast content, where whatever conversations I'm having, any book that I've read, which I read every day, any snippets that I know are important, I just add it on my story. So on my stories, you'll only find things like book content, some quotes that I've read, or something that I've learned which is really good that might benefit others, or me trying to probably push people to be a better version by going to the gym, telling them, go work out, put some quotes of other people so that they get motivated or inspired, or even challenge them directly saying, are you going to be a lazy ass and just sitting and keep looking at my story, or actually go and work out? Right. So my idea is to just use the platform to use it to enable people to find potential within themselves. And that could be any area that I'm doing on. But I don't necessarily go to my Instagram, or I used to do that in in the previous days, because TikTok is banned here, by the way, in India, right? So we don't use TikTok.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's one
Probably for
good
the
thing.
best.
It is it is for the best, trust me. But there was a time when TikTok was live, and I remember we used to create reels on those playback songs, like how people used to dance. I used to do that. And now when I look at it, I'm like, why did I even do that? That sounds so stupid, right? But now I've grown through the years. So now I understand. That's why I don't create anything of that sort of content. If it's a content, it has to do with either my work, this professional podcast, or trying to just inspire others, but nothing to do with my personal life. This is my family. This is that. I just trying to keep my life away from
And
that.
with the work content that you're sharing, like it does,
Mhm.
you don't get caught up in how it did or like how people, whether things went, got seen by more people or not, or whether people liked it or respond to it. You're able to just kind of be like, here, I'm sharing this and moving on.
Yeah. So I do have that. So I'm not gonna lie to you saying, oh, I don't even care which people looked at it, but I do go. So I have a habit. I would hardly use my phone for like 3 or 4 times in a day. So as soon as I wake up, I never use my phone for the first 2 hours. I have a
Nice.
standard practice. I wake up, I'll do oil pulling, meditation, I'll pray, I'll sit and read a book. So I'm 1 and 2 hours pretty much is gone there. If I am going online, I'll just probably go see if I've uploaded something. If there is someone that has probably commented, I might just comment them back. But it's not like, oh, have I gone viral? Let me just check every 1 hour how many people viewed my story, how many likes did I get. I'm least bothered about it, and it's a constant battle. It's not something that I would say that I've achieved it, but I know that if I open Instagram or if I open these social media platforms, I know I'm going to be bombarded with all of this information. So I try to keep it off. The only time I will use it is when I'm totally free, probably at the end of the day, but never when I'm working or I'm going out. So it's a constant struggle that I fight.
Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Some of the other things that I also had noted down that I think which we could probably do is, and I've heard this, I saw this on your page, right, which was interesting. This was to do with daily rituals or boundaries. So, can you kind of give us some ideas around what small daily rituals or boundaries have biggest impact on mental clarity and help you build emotional resilience?
I think honestly, I'm very bad at this.
Okay.
I have I think I have really poor daily like I'm very like I don't know, what do I want to do now? What do I want to do now? It's probably some of
Okay,
why
you're
this stuff
moving
can
around
impact
beautifully.
me
Okay.
so intensely. But like I don't think I'm the person to be giving advice to others on what the daily boundaries or rituals are that are so helpful. But yeah, those I mean, I love what you said, and I've heard from a lot of similar people that like waking up first thing and really keeping your morning for yourself, or just not immediately going to your phone. I do that also. I have a physical alarm clock, so that's what helps me wake
Mm,
up, and not checking the phone at the very first thing. I think is a really
yep.
nice daily boundary or ritual. But yeah, like I just don't feel in position to be giving advice about habits right now.
And I like that, Max, right? Rather than you trying to act like a guru, you're honest about things, and I think that is what people need to kind of even identify. If it's something that you don't do it, you don't do it, or we don't have to act like we are an expert. Like I said, I'm trying to figure this out. The tactics I shared, the reason I asked that question is because I just touched upon it, right? Things that I do, like my rituals, like as I said, notification is one. You share a few. I think those are just probably a few tidbits that we can do, but social media is built. Like imagine you're fighting against thousands of engineers, psychologists, people that know your human brain better than you do yourself. So
Totally. And
it's
yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're hearing from both of us. Get a little bit of get a little bit of that. One thing I will share from my a dear friend of mine, Adam, a ritual he had that I did for about 3 years that I found really beautiful. Which he had a beauty in the day practice, and
Mm,
that was he would write down one beautiful thing each day, and then the sort of motivation, or the way I saw it for me anyway, was the motivation to keep doing it every day was when you get to a year after that date. So you keep it in like a journal or something, or if you want to do your phone, just date
mhm,
what it is. And then you go back and whatever person was sort of like responsible or involved in that moment, you say to them, hey, a year ago today, you said this to me, like, and I found that really beautiful. And just was a process of recognizing beauty and sharing that beauty in the world. And he found that it also like helped him see and like look for more beauty in the world. And that is a practice
yeah.
that I did for about 3 years and really enjoyed. I found I was then just like doing it to do it and wasn't really like feeling the spirit after 3 years. He's kept going for like 12. He's much more like
Wow.
regimented in his way. But that is one practice that I have found that is fun to share, even though I, again, would not call myself certainly a person to teach about practices or rituals.
Interesting. And I think this is very important for people to understand that, the point that you said when you tell people back, you compliment them for things that they've shared, this kind of starts that loop of positivity, right? Like people then actually start looking for positive things around them. And I actually was reading the book today. There's this book that I'm reading by Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. And in that,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about two chemicals that are inside our brain, serotonin and oxytocin, And he was talking about
Hmm.
how these are selfless hormones within our brain chemistry, and then
Hmm.
these are the ones that when you do something good, you wanna, if I do something good to you, you wanna do good to something else, somebody else, and that person does it to someone else, and that starts that group. And I think that is what kind of makes it really powerful. But he also talks about few other chemicals like I think it was endorphins and dopamine, like how these are
Hmm.
more for you to become tenacious and have that achieve mindset, like more like selfish hormones. But I think to your point, right, when we get into this mindset of let's start sharing these things with others, you start making your life better because now you're thinking on positivity, and the people around you also remember you for that precise reasons.
I like that. I think that's a beautiful idea.
One of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about was storytelling, obviously, but diving deeper into your the internal beliefs, right, about storytelling. So, are there any ideas around storytelling that everyone agrees that these are some things that you need to do in storytelling, like in this respective fashion, but you've identified through your own experience that that's not actually necessarily true. That's you've not said it out loud, but in storytelling that that doesn't work.
I think the one that would be closest to that for me is sort of what I was touching on earlier of I used to be really a strong proponent for a message is only as good as its ability to be received. I think actually it was Simon Sinek who talked about how some of the most celebrated academically papers are like read by like 8 people because they're so like jargony and just like it's basically only like it just who else can understand what's
Mm,
even going on inside of those things. And I think I've come to really feel that like that's one style of it, but I really have come to deeply value the like whether or not you understand what's happening, here's what's real for me and what I need to say and how I need to express it. And I hope that lands in you in exactly the way that it's meant to. And I trust that it will. But like just really being free to express whatever is real for us without worrying so much about audience. And so I think that's not like that strategy is less commercially viable. It will be harder to sell your script or share
true,
your thing with that attitude.
true.
But there's like a to me like a divine beauty in that as well that like is just deep and pure and that I've come to trust and value much more than I used to.
I love it because I think in some capacity this ties back to my belief system as well. Like you're trying to do it for your intention is not for it to get viral or something, but your intention is to just share it the way it should be shared
Hmm.
without being concerned about, yeah, will 1 billion people like and comment on my respective poem.
Totally. And so I actually just like released a song with my friend Axel, and he's so fed up with social media. And he's just like,
Hmm.
oh, like I don't want to promote it. And I was like, okay, like great. Like and then one thing we did, and I've been asking people this, is like, what does the song want? Like, what does the art want? How does it want to be shared? Like, let's actually ask. Oh, it sounds weird. Okay,
Interesting.
whatever. Let's actually ask, what does the song want? And the answer, like, how does it want to be shared? And the answer he got back was like, he wants to be shared in like, it wants to be shared in like sacred spaces. And it's like, great. Like, if we see an opportunity for that to happen, then like, let's have that happen. But like actually
Nice.
asking the art, like,
Nice.
how does it want to be shared? And then really listening
Love
for
it.
an answer and seeing what wants to happen. And then, yeah, I think my answer with how does that song want to be shared was, yeah, it wants to reach the people that it's meant for. Like, and it wants to be heard, like be taken in and felt like it's a song about feeling it all. Um, but yeah, like I love that process too of what like not what I want. I want it to go blah blah blah. I want it to be spread out to this. What does it
Yeah.
want? Like how does it give myself to that? Is I'd like that question for any artists or creators or people making stuff in the world.
Wow, that's a total opposite way of how things are today in today's world because everyone wants to share it outside so that you can get something out of that respective song. But here now you're saying rather than you talking about what I see this is more like a conversation with your ego, right? Like because your ego wants stuff. I want this, I want that. That's our ego. But when you ask something else, you're going outside of your own mind and then asking to a different entity altogether. The reason I think about this is because I had spoken to one of the another guest some time back who was an entrepreneur who had left entrepreneurship and then he went into spirituality kind of a side, and that message kind of correlates, and I think there's a lot of similarity between people that are doing things because they think it is right versus people that are doing things to achieve something out of that respective thing that they're sharing, right? I think And I think our intention needs to be clear as to why are we doing it. And that all starts with self-awareness that you initially said.
That's related to the title of this podcast, right? Isn't that the spirit behind the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that I was curious about is I know you've written a lot of poetry on this. So I'm just curious if you have some poetry on self-doubt, being anxious or anxiety, and how can people come out of that? Maybe some poetry or something that you think could uplift people that might be listening to us if they're going to something.
I do have a piece on that. It's a clever prompt to
Awesome.
get me into that poem. So I heard an anthropologist. I was sitting on a plane next to an anthropologist. I said, "What's the most interesting thing to you about people?" And she said that everyone in like across cultures, just about everybody, whether it's in their job, in their family, in friendship, whatever it might be, is suffering from some version of imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is believing that you're not like basically good enough to be doing what you're doing. And I am constantly wondering if I'm good enough to follow my heart, if I'm worthy of pursuing my art. Wondering if my wording is worthy, worried I'm not worthy of working on creating beauty. I'm constantly wondering if I am creating any beauty, if there's any substance to these fleeting words, anything it's really worth, anything that changes after people hear my work. And if there's been no change as far as the eye is concerned, then I'm concerned that at the end, my life's work won't have been worth anything. I'm afraid the world would be a better place if I replaced the time I spend on stage with walking out into the streets and doing literally anything. Do words matter when they don't make matter? Do ideas need to take matter to matter? Because to make matter is worse. I don't want to be out there. I want to be here, sharing words that seem to so very quickly fade. My art doesn't exist in physical, tangible space. It comes and then it goes away until we're left with this nothingness, emptiness, consciousness that I so desperately want to lift. But when I look around at this, it won't look any different than when I started, unless we're different than when I started. And we won't look any different as far as the eye is concerned. So I'm concerned that none of this matters. Then again, do we matter? Nothing but this miraculous accumulation of matter, miraculous organization of matter, seeing matter, being matter, breathing matter. We can't actually make matter, but we can make matter matter. We can turn matter into things that matter. We can give matter value. Are these words valuable? Is that measured in dollars and cents? I guess maybe that makes sense. But if we were observed by aliens, they'd probably wonder why we spend so much time and money on things that don't matter. They'd be like, why don't you value value for its value? Why not create a world where value is actually built on your values? Planet Earth could be the thing you call heaven with an adjustment to your attitudes. Isn't that a beautiful idea? And isn't it something that an idea can be beautiful? And maybe that's enough. I want so badly for it to be enough, for what I create in minds and hearts and souls to be enough. I feel like I'm hurling stones into this giant pool of consciousness. And I finish each poem with a splash. And for a moment, there's a ripple over this vast pool of thoughts that we've collectively amassed. And then it fades, as ripples do, without a care for me or you. That stillness is resumed. And as I gaze at this beautiful natural view, can't help but feel like it looks the same as it was before I threw. And I know the lakes have my stones in it now, but if I'm being brutally honest with myself, is that change? Does that matter? And no matter how much time I spend crafting the perfect lines, it won't stop my time on this earth from its decline. Since birth, I have been slowly dying, losing an arm wrestling match which fathered time. And it might look like I have my shit together as far as the eye is concerned, but I'm concerned that I'm wasting the only thing that matters. That I'll look back from my deathbed knowing deep down it didn't matter, that I'll return to the earth nothing but mere matter without having made any more than a ripple, at least as far as the eye is concerned. Now, I wrote that about 6 years ago now. And I have a very different relationship with the ripple. Like I really, at that point, I was so obsessed. Like my work has to make has to make change, has to make some sort of meaning. I
Yeah.
now deeply trust like that's meant for one person. And like it had, like I've heard that mean a lot to people. I'm like, it's great. Like that's enough. Like if it touches myself or anyone, I trust the ripples and I may never see them, but I trust it. And I
Wow.
love art. I love the world. I love people. I love this place and let it flow to the places that it comes and goes. And when I am delivered, I will be delivered and I will have tried to make as many loving ripples as I can and won't do it at the expense of being love here on earth.
Wow. I mean, this is so powerful, right, Max?
Thanks, man.
I'm just wondering, like, how did you even remember exact word by word this entire poem that you've written? I mean, are you spending hours memorizing this, or Has that just, gone into your soul now that you like what is the secret?
I'm gonna overshare on this one in that, like, it used to be that it's like in the shower, I would like go over it because after if I've written it, I've gone over it a bunch of times, right? And so it
Yeah.
comes more naturally that way. And then one time I was on mushrooms. That's the overshare. And someone had asked me to do a poem, and I was like, "Oh, like I just need to find." I like couldn't in my mind as a spatial place. I just need to find the beginning. If I can find the beginning, then I've just
Ah,
sort of got it all. And I was having trouble finding the beginning, and I was like, "Oh, there it is." And then once I could find the beginning, I could just sort of follow the flow
interesting.
because it has rhyme and rhythm, kind of like a song, and so it's like it's easier,
Yeah,
it's easier to catch because things
makes
rhyme what might
sense.
come next, and now I've done them enough times that for the most part I've got them. I'm more likely to forget a whole paragraph than I am like one word.
One word. Yeah, because I
And
think
if
it's
I
as like a
yeah,
song, right? That's interesting.
and if I did, you wouldn't notice.
Exactly. I wouldn't know if there's something that you missed. Okay. I know we're almost coming to the end here, right, Max? But before we wrap, there are two questions that I want to ask you. The number one is if your poetic voice, amazing voice, which you could possibly send like a text message to every teenager in the world right now, what would it say to them?
I think it would be like life is more magical than you can fathom. And so I think that's a big part of with the work with kids that I'm doing. It's like it's so amazing what can be when we get out of our own way and we like let the world be the world. But one thing that the phones really do so intensely is like isolate us into, ironically, because it's connected to everything, isolate us into our own little worlds. And like, yes, you might see something wonderful, you might be inspired to go off and do, but man, if you are, be inspired, go off and do, like, because the thing is actually designed to be like, whoa, that was inspiring. Okay, next, on to the next. And so, yeah, I think it's just that the world is more magic than we could know, and living that way, I think is such a powerful and more fun way to live. I want kids to have fun. I want life to be
True,
fun for people. And
true.
I don't think that this for the most part for them is fun. Like sometimes it is, but I think most of the time it's really more in the way than it is helping.
Yeah, I think we are robbing kids away from their innocence and the fun that they're supposed to have by giving away them screens unknowingly. And now, instead of them being out and enjoying the nature, enjoying friendships, those connections are unconsciously putting them in some place where now they're only addicted to phones. And there are so many research and data, right, that backs up that the more addicted you are to screens, the more prone you are to being anxious all the time, being depressed, because now you don't have no real connection. Those are all superficial people that you're possibly talking to.
Yeah, I think that's what it would say.
Yeah. And last but not the least, Max, how can people reach out to you?
Oh my God, on social media. Everybody should totally follow me on social media. No, I'm just kidding around. I mean, I am on the social platforms, and weirdly, that is probably Instagram is the one that I'm on most. But I have a website, words.move.com, is where my like videos are, my poems are. That's where I put things. And so yeah, words.move.com for the poetry and the art, and socialawakening.org for the work with kids in schools. There's a lot of like resources and stuff like that around this stuff on that page. But yeah, those are probably the best ways. And yeah, I hope people will especially go watch the poetry and take that stuff in. That means a lot to me. And I really do hope that I get to show, at some point, we'll have a filmed version of that show that starts with that baby's poem up on that site or hopefully on a
Nice.
streamer or something. I got to figure out how to do that and how to perform it more. But also, I'm looking for help and support right now in making that happen live more. So if someone listening is like, oh, I put on live shows and great, get on over here, let's do that, then that would be fantastic too.
Perfect. And I think just to wrap things up and put things in perspective, because at the end of the day, people will be like, okay, these guys have spoken everything about social media and then poetry and all of this good stuff, art, right? But at the end of the day, these guys are gonna talk about put all of this content on social media, right? So don't you guys are contradicting yourselves? So again, guys, please note that end of the day, there are two type of creators out there, right? One people are there that would want to send a positive message that will have a positive impact that will enable you to do something good with your life, and there is one that you will like but it is not adding any value to your life. So you have to identify what type of content is helping you become a better person, helping you take action, and ensuring that when you look at that person's content, it is making you feel good. If you're looking at some content, you're liking it for now, but it makes you feel shitty after some time, then you know that that's wrong. Those are the accounts, those are the people, or that's the type of content you should stay away from. because if it's making you feel shitty, that's a sign that you need to obviously stay away from.
Yeah, and I mean, I try to put into it the best that I can, content that feels good. And that said, if you are like, "Oh, no, I'm not gonna go on there to see that," yeah, great, don't go on there just to see my
Yeah,
stuff. I would much rather you not go on at all than go on just to see me, for sure, is where my
true.
priorities are at with it, and the websites and stuff like that are there for
Yep,
it, and anyway, but it's been a great
yep,
conversation, and thank you for having me.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Max, for taking your time out and joining us on this podcast. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Cheers.